no matter how you dice it, when we think about money and budgeting, because I was a die-hard Dave Ramsey budgeter. I mean, to a T, had the spreadsheets and pennies and all this. And that is all great until things don't go according to plan. And the world we live in is wired to make things not go according to plan all the time. And when we are a consumer and we build habits around being a consumer, that's what we're going to do the majority of the time out of habit. So coming from someone who budgeted for over 10 years, die hard, it always was great until it wasn't.
Budgets work only if you have a structure that puts it in place. That is the only way it works, because most people, if they have a budget, it doesn't work because of the fact that they have to log in to their computer or whatever, plug in all the data numbers, and then hope that they did what they were supposed to. And so I would say the main problem here with most people's budget is they don't have a structure that goes along with that spreadsheet to enact what they're actually doing.
The reason budgeting sucks is because it's tied to us not losing something that we don't know what we'd do with it if we kept it to create more value in our life. When I was controlling the budget, it was always this give and take of, oh, you overspent at the grocery store. We're not following the budget. Now we're not going to have enough money, but we didn't know why we needed to have enough money, because it was for this unforeseen thing that we couldn't articulate. We couldn't describe where the peace of mind was going to come from.
Welcome to the Cashflow Legendz podcast with your hosts Nate, Brandon, and Brock. Remember, our insights are not direct financial advice, so consult with your financial team before making any decisions based on the topics discussed in this show.
Welcome back to Cashflow Legendz. Here with my dudes Nate and Brock. We were having some entertaining conversation like we always do before our recording starts. That could probably be B-roll, I think is what they call that. But guys, it's exciting today to talk about this word that I have found in most households is right up there with a curse word. I cannot tell you how many times I've heard normally a husband say, oh, my wife hates that word. And that word is the B word. No, not that one. Budget. And hey, we can have a little humor here. That wasn't inappropriate.
That was fun. I didn't see that coming.
Thank you. So, budget. And I'm going to say this, and then I want to hear your guys' thoughts on why that is such a dreaded word in most households from all of y'all's conversations. Yesterday, I'm talking to a buddy of mine who I've known for a long time, and his words were, what's the worst thing that could happen learning how y'all think about money flow compared to how we do, because what we've been doing ain't working. He's about 32, hardworking, wife-driven, beautiful family, beautiful kids. And he's like, something's got to change. And he's like, what we've been doing with budgeting is not working. And there's a reason for that. So we are going to unlock this B word, and we're going to talk about how you can reframe your thinking. So Nate, how many times do you hear that word and that thought process, even in your own house? I know we have a story too, but like how that works.
Yeah, we don't really budget in my house. We used to, back when we were doing the Dave Ramsey thing. And, I didn't know what it was at the time, but I've shared this on the show before that, I've struggled with scarcity my entire life. And I didn't recognize it at the time, but the whole process of budgeting was just promoting more and more scarcity in my life. And so it wasn't making it easier, it was making it harder to operate and to sort of get out of that mode. And that's what we see a lot of times with the people that we work with is they are, to a degree, they are stuck in scarcity. And no one's ever told them, hey, instead of trying to figure out how to cut $100 out of your budget, why don't you figure out how to go make 500? Like make that a goal. Instead of trying to cut 100, go make 500. Figure out how you can make an extra $500 this month. That's it. That's all. No more, no less. Just $500. And that's going to take you from scarcity to abundance real quick. That's going to start to ignite some creativity. So those are some of the things that we encourage people in their thinking is let's think less about budgeting and scarcity and more about abundance and how we can grow and really maximize the efficiency of what you're working with. Put some power behind it.
Brock, when you pull my headphones out, when you have conversations about budgeting, because you're probably often dealing with a little bit different age range and mindset than Nate and I are. So maybe somebody hasn't gotten implanted in that thinking as long. What do you notice and what do you see is the real problem? Not the budgeting, but in general.
So I would say that most of the time it's not the budget that's the problem, right? So a lot of people say that, oh, budgets work. Budgets work if you sit down and plug in the numbers, because budgets, all they are a forecast into the future, but a teller of the past. You have to plug in what you did and put it in that placeholder, right? And so where most people go wrong with their budgets, and I have a newsletter coming out about this tomorrow, actually, which is funny. And if you want to be on my newsletter,
boom, that a boy.
Go to my website that just launched this week too, stonecenturyfinancial.com. But over the last 2 years, I've had over 200 conversations strictly about cash flow and budgeting. And what we've found is budgets work only if you have a structure that puts it in place. That is the only way it works, because most people, if they have a budget, it doesn't work because of the fact that they have to log in to their computer or whatever, plug in all the data numbers, and then hope that they did what they were supposed to. And 95% of the time, 99% of the time, the people who have the budget spent over their budget because there's no structure in place of how to actually use the thing. And so I would say the main problem here with most people's budget is they don't have a structure that goes along with that spreadsheet to enact what they're actually doing.
Those are both great points. And no matter how you dice it, when we think about money and budgeting, because I was a diehard Dave Ramsey budgeter, I mean, to a T, had the spreadsheets and pennies and all this. And that is all great until things don't go according to plan. And the world we live in is wired to make things not go according to plan all the time. What do I mean by that? You can buy anything with the push of a button almost now. You can buy stuff without the push of a button. Alexa is starting to ask you if you want to buy this deal now because you bought it before, or if you want to put it into your cart.
That's why I'll never have Alexa.
I knew that was coming. It's mindless ability to be a consumer. And when we are a consumer and we build habits around being a consumer, that's what we're going to do the majority of the time. Behavior and how we talk about money flow and the systems that are around that. And it really is not complicated. It just takes a willingness to unlearn.
Yep.
And the number of times that you ask somebody, do you feel like you're on a financial treadmill? Most people will say very quickly, yes. And that is by design in the system. So if we know the rules of the game, then we can figure out how we want to play it because we already know how to win. All right. So Garrett says that. We love that. And Garrett wrote a book. I think it was Why Budgeting Sucks.
No, it's just budgeting sucks.
Budgeting
Yeah.
sucks. Yeah. And it really is a great read. Recommend you going and grabbing it. It'll really challenge your thinking about how budgeting almost always, there it is,
There you
budgeting almost always keeps you stuck in scarcity. As opposed to, let me give you a perfect example and then I'll let the guys dive in. The reason budgeting sucks is because it's tied to us not losing something that we don't know what we'd do with it if we kept it to create more value in our life. So let me put it this way. When my wife and I communicate about what our priorities are for the year, then it's much easier to create systems around our money fueling those priorities because we're in alignment with what those dollars should be doing. When I was controlling the budget, it was always this give and take of, oh, you overspent at the grocery store. We're not following the budget. Now we're not going to have enough money, but we didn't know why we needed to have enough money because it was for this unforeseen thing that we couldn't articulate. We couldn't describe where the peace of mind was going to come from. So budgets can feel like kind of like a prison, but that's really because of a lack of a system and a lack of a way we talk about money flow. So we know that there's a better way to do it, and we introduce that to a lot of our members through something called Currents.
And if you want more information, go to livecurrents.com/Brock Fortner.
Boom. And what we learned about this, Nate, is that it really, just like Nelson said, becoming your own banker in the first half of the book, it's about behavior shifts and matching systems with the behavior shift. And so that's one of the coolest things that we get to see through our team with Currents is people's go, I'm not really changing anything as far as my effort. I'm just changing the efficient use of my energy and my systems that match it. And so what does that look like, Nate, a lot on the front side conversations? And then Brock, because y'all both do that a lot.
Well, the traditional language that's used, often referred to as an emergency fund. We like to call that a peace of mind fund. And one of the values of building up some reserves is to give you some resilience to fight against the things that you were talking about earlier, which is when things don't go the way we hope they're going to go, when things go south, when we have some sort of unexpected thing that pops up, whatever it might be. Dave used to say, save up $1,000 and then start paying off debt. Well, I don't know about y'all, but half of a day, can wreck $1,000 pretty quick. Like, I mean, just one issue with your vehicle. Like, I mean, there's all kinds of just random things that can happen that can wreck $1,000 pretty fast. And what I have seen and experienced to some degree is when those plans do get wrecked, you get deflated. You feel defeated. You feel like, oh, there's no way I'm ever going to do this. And I can tell you from my personal experience, one of the things that helped heal some of the scarcity that I was experiencing is when we were following Dave Ramsey and we were paying off debt. There were times when, and I've shared this before, there were times when even though I had money to pay bills, I still didn't want to see that money leave my life. It made me sick. Like, it was so hard to just pay a bill sometimes. And so following the infinite banking model that we use now, when that was introduced to me, I could see my principal cash value in my policy, and I could see a policy loan taken against it, but the numbers were still there, which meant now all I had to do was just feed back into the flow of that. And so I could see that momentum staying constant on those dollars instead of losing that momentum. And that gave me a lot of excitement. And, when you're excited about a process, often there's success that comes with it.
Brock, what do you love about when you introduce people to Currents that are struggling because they're on the financial treadmill, or maybe they're not struggling, but a new system that's more in line with behavior and priorities allows them to be even more successful? Kind of what does that look like in your conversations?
Yeah. So first, let me preface, I'm trying to get better at this. Oftentimes, I don't actually talk about my success or the impact that I'm making. So I'll say that I'm like in the top 5 producers in the entire country that use currents and get people on. So I've seen a thing or two, or I know a thing or two because I've seen a thing or two. I think that's
Yep.
the way the commercial goes.
I like
So,
it.
and one of the things that I really just love is the fact that when we get people on this that are having trouble with their finances, their cash flow, they finally have a sense for what's going on and they feel confident. Like, I can't tell you how many testimonials we get about people saying, I finally have confidence about where I'm at with my cash flow.
Mhm.
I finally feel confidence in my financial position. I know what's going on for the first time. And what I love about that is the fact that once you become aware of what's going on financially, everything else is possible. And so that's what I really love about the people who are struggling once they get on here. I had a conversation with a pastor client of mine last week or yesterday, I'm sorry. And I mean, they were just thankful because of the fact of actually putting this in place. And they're like, oh my gosh, this savings is in my account. And I've never seen this much money in our account before. How does this happen? Well, it happens because we put the right structure in place. And
Yep.
then those people who are already saving and doing great, like I have guys on currents that make over $1 million and girls that make multiple millions of dollars a year. They don't have a problem with saving. I promise you. They have a lot of money in these accounts. But what happens is because they are now in the structure and they follow my 3-part framework to cash flow, they're aware of what's going on and they become addicted to the success of their account growing so we could go do something with it rather than thinking, oh my gosh, how do I make sure that money's left over so I can put it somewhere else?
I really like what you just said about becoming addicted to success. And what I heard in that from our conversations and all the people that we get to visit with is we have habits and systems, whether we realize we do or not, and they're creating success or they're keeping us from success.
Yeah. So
And so
there's something that we talk about within currents, which is opt in and opt out. So the way that we portray this is if you looked at donors, organ donors in the world, being an organ donor is a good thing. Like that helps our world. So the countries that you have to opt in to be a part of an organ donor, it's like 20-30% success rate. The countries where you have to opt out of being an organ donor is insane. It's over 95% of the country are organ donors. Well, if we just took that same exact approach to our financial life and we automated the habits to where we have to opt out of saving, we have to opt out of having success, our probability of reaching our financial freedom number or our retirement goes through the roof. Because now, if you take a step back and you think about the reality of if you're a young guy that's going through currents right now, and I know you guys are taking some younger people through currents, they could be in their 20s. Let's say that you have a 24-year-old coming in. Well, that 24-year-old is going to probably be working for the next 40 years if he follows the traditional path. That means he's going to be making an income over the next 40 years, and it's probably going to be increasing. Well, if you have any financial awareness at all, you know that you need to save some of that money for retirement. If you do not have the right structure in place that automates those savings, you are saying, me as a human, an imperfect human, can be sure that I'm saving the right amount every single year, every single time I get a paycheck, so that I'll be ready in retirement. I'm sorry. I love humans. I trust humans. I am a human being, but we're imperfect and we make errors. And when there's room for error, almost always we'll take it.
yep.
So if we eliminate that room for error and we put the structure in place to where we become aware of what's going on, our probability of success again goes through the roof because we are creating and automating those habits that we want for success, the habits that we want to create the life that we want.
There's that, what you're really talking about is clarity, Brock.
100%.
And what I love about what this opportunity allows people is it brings them to the forefront of, do I want to be serious about where my money's been going? because that's the first thing that we see the most. So like if we're going to map this out simply, are you willing to evaluate where your money's been going? Because if that's not important to you, then it doesn't matter what you say you want. You've not done anything to start creating that. It's like saying I want to throw 100 miles per hour and I've never picked up a baseball. So you gotta realize that there's things that have to be done, and it will feel like steps back. So a big part that we do for all the people that we work with, and one of the things I love about this, Nate and Brock, is that it doesn't require you to fully grasp infinite banking and whole life insurance and becoming your own banker to build systems around creating your own opt-in or opt-out money flow. And when we have that, we start getting clarity on, oh, I don't have an income producing problem right now. I have an income keeping problem because my systems are designed for it to leak out of my life for somebody else.
Yep.
I couldn't help but think on the opt-in, opt-out statistic. That's fascinating. You used to have to opt into certain retirement plans. Now you typically have to opt out if it's even an option. So just think about that. So let's kind of give a framework. You got to know where you are before you know where you want to go. Once you know where you are, you get clear on why you want to go where you want to go. And it can be simple. Start simple. It can be in 1 year, we'd like to have X amount of money that we have as a buffer. Do we already produce enough with evaluating where money's going to allow that to happen? Yes, we do, or no, we don't. If it's a no, why is it a no? Because then that brings you to where you're putting the hands on the reins of your financial system and going, this is what I want to happen because that's what I want to happen. Which is way different than money in the checking account. We pay bills out of it. I try to save a little bit in the savings. Oh crap, kid needs braces. Comes back to the checking. We have no money again. Rinse and repeat. And what I love about it more than anything, guys, is it is behavioral and it's mindset shifting first. The system makes sense. Like creating the system makes sense. Are you willing to unlearn and match it up with a new behavior and new thought process? So go through a few of the basic things and how the system of currents, CURRENCE, frames money flows compared to traditional budgeting and banking, because that's really fascinating when you start seeing that and knowing how money's flowing through your life.
Well, I mean, it's at the fundamental level, it's really the epitome of investing in yourself before you're investing anywhere else, investing in your peace of mind, building up your resilience. But, what I love about it is it fights the psychology of budgeting that so many people struggle with. And, Brock said this earlier, when you can automate your savings, that means that you are getting out of the default structure that we all experience, which is when money goes in our checking account, psychologically, we often give ourselves permission to spend it. And what happens a lot of time in a budget is people say, okay, we know we've got this much money coming into our checking account this month. And now we're going to allocate all these different places where that money's going to go. And then we overspend one area, so then we got to rob from another area in order to satisfy the budget and everything like that. And then, extra money comes in, and now we're like, okay, how do we, that's money we weren't counting on, so now how do we spend it? Let's blend it into the budget. And so what often happens is people might be giving their dollars names. They might be naming every dollar, putting something to it, but that at the end of the day, there's not a whole lot of value that is created from that process, and it becomes a dangerous cycle. So the idea with currents is the order in which you do things becomes extremely important.
It doesn't become, it is.
It is extremely important. Yes.
Yeah. It is probably the most important thing as far as how your money flows through your life. Brock, give everybody listening who's like, okay, I think I kind of follow what you're saying, but at a simple level, I'm here right now. I want to apply this. This is what it's going to allow me to do with some of the key terms like a reservoir, peace of mind fund, whatever would relate to most people listening. And this is where I want to go. I'm 25, I'm 35, I'm 45, and I want to be able to say this, and this is how this can allow that to happen more efficiently because of the systematic approach.
Yeah. So first, let me say, I have people on here that are 18 years old, all the way up to about 65 years old. And I know there are people older than that are on this. I also have people who have incomes from $14,000 a year all the way up to about $3 million a year. Okay. So this works. This isn't just a theory. It actually works. So let me first describe what's going on in the typical way. Okay. The default structure of cash flow. What most people are going through is they collect their paycheck and it is direct deposited in their checking account. And that checking account is also where you pay all your bills and all your lifestyle expenses, your taxes, everything comes out of this account. And typically, if there's anything left over, you'll move that money by logging into your bank app or website and moving the money to your savings account. Unconsciously spending while manually trying to save every single dollar that you have. That is the default structure of cash flow and how it does not work. Okay. What we have begun moving people into is a new structure of cash flow using our current technology. Okay. Where now what we're doing is making our income and our expenses asynchronous of each other, meaning they run on their own paths. The way that we do this is rather than having your income be direct deposit into your checking account, we set up what's called your income reservoir through our current technology. Your direct deposit is now direct deposited into your income reservoir. And then from the current account, okay, the current technology, we set up a movement of money that will automatically move how much you need per month for spending into your checking account that you currently have, where you pay all your bills, do all your lifestyle expenses, pay your taxes, do all that. Okay. You've now automated money going in and money going out, which automates the third and most important piece, which is savings. That is organically saving in your reservoir, to which at that point, now you have to make a decision. Do I consume this money or do I go create a cash flow engine? And you move the ball forward through that.
So when Brock says cash flow engine, we talk to people all the time. We've been this, we still are this, that are like, hey, I want to be able to say by 50 that I have passive income. That may be a statement that we hear. Okay, how's that going for you right now? Well, I'm 37 and I have no clue if I'm even going to have enough to retire. Okay, so let's bring everything to the table. Let's start there. When you begin to see how your behavior connected to the system that supports the correct beneficial behavior, you begin to realize this really is an opportunity to do things that I've been wanting to do. I just didn't have the proper system in place. That's it. It becomes a system and it starts becoming fun. One thing that Myron Golden says has really resonated with me lately is you have to continue to increase your zero poverty line to a new number. And what he's saying is what Brock's referring to in the reservoir. Year one at 21 years old, your reservoir amount to be able to give you complete peace of mind after that year may be $10,000. But now income goes up, expenses go up, maybe you get married, and now your inflow is a lot larger. So now that 10 grand reservoir amount may need to go to 30 grand because that creates more peace of mind. You have a little bit more bills, those kind of things. So that tweaking of the system never stops, but you're always seeing what is occurring with your actions. Whereas the traditional model, we have no clue because it's all coming in and out of the same place. And we don't know what the heck's happening except for where does all my money go?
Well, and I can share a personal experience with a couple that I met with just in the last week that I had put them on currents. And, one of the things that I had shared with them whenever I was introducing it to them is the app and sort of the process as far as how it's set up, sort of turns it into a game. And research shows that if you can introduce an element of fun to a process, you become more engaged in that process. And they both just like leaned forward and they were like, yes, like we've had so much fun building our reservoir. Like it does feel like a game. So that's another aspect of it that you don't really get to experience with budgeting is, it's often it's more of a mundane process instead of something that's entertaining or engaging.
So, guys, let's frame it out with currents is just technology that matches up to the most successful mindsets that have built systems around money forever. It's just technology that's caught up to the reality of how you be successful with money. If you've never thought this way before, I'm telling you now, if you come through our process and you begin to practice this, you're going to have to be willing to commit to thinking long range enough to create a new habit. And it's going to maybe be a little awkward at first, but as compared to what? Staying on the financial treadmill, not having enough money when things doesn't go according to plan, or not getting more benefit than you know you should out of what you already do to create income. Here's what I love about it. When that person sees, oh, I'm keeping 15% more of my money. I'm just being uber conservative. I'm keeping 15% more of my money in my life. That is a pay raise of 15% in an economy where we feel like we're getting squeezed everywhere just by repositioning how money flows in the systems we pair with. So now I'm less stressed about what I don't have, and I'm more creative and opportunistic about doing more things like this to create value in the world to build that even more. We have said nothing about making more money yet, but value created, money will almost always follow over time. And you're investing in yourself and your willingness to learn. So my question is, what's the downside of doing this for anybody?
The fact that they have to get uncomfortable.
There you go.
I remember as you guys have been talking, I'm having flashbacks of different client experiences. And there's one that I had where this guy did not go through with currents. And he's talked to two different people to introduce him to currents because of how powerful it is. And both times he has said no. But I remember, and I'm going to say his name, not his last name, but his first name. So he knows if he's listening to this that I'm calling him out. But we were going through this, and Brian is a real estate agent. And Brian just set up a business account, and he had his cash flow going, and he said he lived off of a budget. But what we found was he kept spending over his budget. Why? Because he didn't have a structure in place. And he said something very specifically to me that I've never forgotten. He said, Brock, it feels like you're making me face the truth. And I said, absolutely. And it's your role to whether you're going to actually answer it or not. And unfortunately, he didn't. What he thought was it was more simple to just make a bunch of income in his business account. And then when he overspent, just figure out where to pull the money from each month. You're not going to get ahead financially if you are constantly just trying to figure out at the last second where you're going to pull money from for your expenses. You've got to stop. You've got to stop unconsciously spending and manually saving to putting the right structures in place to where you face the truth and you're comfortable with the truth so that you can actually take charge of your finances and be empowered to actually reach your financial freedom number or your retirement the way you want to, and not just hoping that it works out.
Just got two visuals in my head whenever you said that. One is like somebody who prefers to drive with a blindfold on than to actually be able to see the road. The other was this idea that when you stick your head in the sand, 90% or 95% of your body is still exposed. But you're believing this lie that you're protected, that you're hidden, that you're safe, when the reality is, you're very vulnerable. Yeah, those two things just kind of popped in my head as you were talking.
I'm going to finish with these two things. Those are great thoughts to think about. Where are we burying our head in the sand and thinking we've got a plan? And the other thing is Brock, remind me of the statistics, which are pretty fascinating. when people implement this on average, as far as compared to American households and saving rates and those kind of things?
Yeah, the national average per the St. Louis Fred, I don't know what that stands for, but it's an acronym. They report every month what the national average savings rate is. Well, last year, the savings average was about 4% for regular households. On Currents, the platform we use, and I get to state this for specific reasons, but we found that all Currents users across the board, the average was about a 28% savings rate.
So a little simple math, 28 minus 4 on average, you're saving 24% more than you have been on average.
Yep. And that's because you actually become aware of what's going on.
All right. So here's what I love about Currents is you may think infinite banking is crazy. You may think whole life's the worst thing ever, but you can learn how to implement this mindset in your life and keep more of your money without ever having to think if that's a fit or not. I don't know anybody who's like, no, I don't want to know how to keep more of my money. So go to cashflowlegendswithaz.com. You can find us there, get on our schedule. We will offer, if you're willing to commit your time, we will offer letting you go through a Currents process with our teams to see if it's a fit for you. The only request we have is you come to it open-minded enough to know that you don't know everything.
And I'll say, if you're too scared to do that yet, go to Live Currents.
There you go.
livecurrents.com/Brock Fortner. And there's a four-part video series that's going to tell you everything about Currents. And then if you're ready after that, then go to our website, book a call, and our team will meet with you.
We'll be sure that those websites are in the show notes so you can find that easy. And the only reason we don't grow in any walk of life is because we stop looking at where we could grow. We put our head in the sand. There's always opportunity to grow. So we hope you have a blessed day. We're so grateful that you shared this time with us. We hope it brought value to you. And most importantly, this is a benefit that we get to do. We would do this even if we didn't have the platform, put it on social media and all the other places, but it's a blessing from the Lord that we don't take lightly. And we hope it's a blessing to you. Hope you have a great day.